Now, Sergio Perez has seemingly seen his chances to remain in Red Bull plummet down after the Mexico GP, where he ended dead last and finishing ahead just of the cars that didn't finish the race at all. But with his car suffering irreparable damage after the collision with Lawson and his bold statement about the Kiwi driver, are we going to see a change in attitude in the Mexican driver in the last 4 races? And more importantly, why did Horner change his stance when it comes to Perez's importance in the team all of a sudden? It goes without saying that Sergio Perez is one of the most controversial drivers on the grid because he's the only driver from the top 8 to not win a race, and he hasn't scored a podium ever since the first 5 races of the season, which were dominated by the Austrian team. He's also the primary reason why they've lost the lead in the Constructors' Championship, not only to McLaren but also to Ferrari, and are very unlikely to bring it back unless the team can unlock magical amount of performance and bring the car where it was at the beginning of the season. But with the steps that Ferrari and McLaren have made, and with both of them having 2 cars constantly competing at the front, it's safe to assume that we're going to see a lot of changes ahead of the 2025 season, because even Horner cannot defend Perez anymore. While stating that the issue was in the car, and once they fix the RB20, the Mexican driver will find his groove again, there's been a different narrative from the Mexican GP onwards, as the team principal of Red Bull, who saw his team slip to 3rd behind Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, stated, "Perez knows Formula 1 is a results-based business, and inevitably when you're not delivering, then the spotlight is firmly on you. As a team, we need both cars scoring points, and that's the nature of Formula 1. We're working with him as hard as we can to try and support him. I think we've done everything that we can to support Checo, and will continue to do so in Brazil next weekend. But there comes a point in time that you can only do so much." The pressure on Perez keeps on mounting, and with Tsunoda and Lawson now battling it out to prove that each one of them are worth for the seat, there comes a time where Red Bull would have to think about a stronger choice for the second seat next to Verstappen. We've seen that the Dutchman doesn't have it in himself to carry the team on the back like he did last year. Rightfully so, because the competition is much tighter now, and while he might hold on to the lead in the drivers category, Red Bull's downfall in the Constructors' Championship will definitely have a negative effect on where they're going to rank in the upcoming season. However, even Lawson knows that what he did in Mexico was just too much, and showing the middle finger to the home hero is not just what you need as you're bidding for his seat. Obviously, tensions were running high because there was a lot at stake. Both of them were fighting for P10, and while that one point wasn't as important as the greater picture of Red Bull, it sure showed that Lawson doesn't have a will to back down from fierce fight with Perez. Yes, if you're asking us, Perez shouldn't be in the position to fight with the V-carb drivers in order to prove that he's worthy of the Red Bull seat, but that's the reality that we live in, and Lawson has now voiced his concerns about these fights happening a bit more often than usual. When talking about it, the Kiwi driver said, "I don't know where Perez wanted me to go. I gave him space at turn 4, he came in super late. At that point of the race, we had just got some clean air, and honestly, our pace wasn't bad, so I'm not going to just get out of his way. I gave him space in turn 4, he drove me off, and then he didn't give me the space in turn 5. I was on the lock stop trying to turn the corner and avoid a collision, but I had nowhere to go. It's frustrating, it wasn't my intention to make contact." However, both Marco and Horner deemed the fight between Perez and Lawson unnecessary and stated that it could have been avoided because there are 2 sister teams we're talking about. They're the last ones on the grid that should be making trouble on the track when it comes to crashing and causing damage. And according to Horner, the damage that Perez suffered from was around 50 to 60 downforce points, which could have been easily avoided as he could have waited for a better place to overtake Lawson. But then again, it just goes to show that nothing is certain in this sport, and neither is the second place in Red Bull. Sergio Perez has also voiced his concerns that the racing attitude of Lawson needs to change for the better because he's managed to get into a beef with Alonso, who's the oldest driver on the grid and a 2-time world champion, as well as with him, which isn't a great thing to do if you're looking to survive in this harsh sport. Of course, Horner has praised the elbows out attitude of Lawson against Alonso, but didn't do the same against Perez. And when talking about it, the Mexican driver said, "I don't have any relationship with Lawson. I think the way he has come to Formula 1, I don't think he has the right attitude for it. He needs to be a bit more humble. When a 2-time world champion was saying things last weekend, he completely ignored him. It's like when you come to Formula 1, you're obviously very hungry and so on, but you have to be respectful as well, off track and on track. I don't think he's showing the right attitude. I think he's a great driver, and I hope for him that he can step back and learn from it. In his first 2 Grand Prix, he's made many incidents. I just think he has to have the right attitude to say, look, probably I'm overdoing it a little bit. I'll step back and start again. Because if you don't learn from your mistakes, Formula 1 is a brutal world and he might not continue. Perez might not be the best person to take advice from on this matter, because whether we like it or not, he hasn't shown a great learning curve from the team's latest upgrades and car's behaviour, and while Verstappen has been able to drive the wheels off the car, the same cannot be said about the Mexican driver. We can only imagine where the team would be had it not been for the dominance they've shown up until Miami, and as of now, we can understand the huge uncertainty and the reshuffle that Marco has talked about ahead of the 2025 season. But apart from Lawson and Tsunoda, Red Bull have a unique chance to sign a driver who's already proving that he can drive the best out of an underperforming car, Franco Colapinto. Although the Argentinian driver has been self-critical and said that he's very unlikely to be on the grid in 2025, the current situation in Red Bull allows him to hope that there is an opportunity in which a seat in Racing Bulls would be freed if the team is to sack Perez and promote either Tsunoda or Lawson. But he'll still be part of Williams' academy, as they're now in talks with Audi in order to try and secure the potentially last seat on the grid for 2025. Helmut Marko has reportedly considered the option of signing Colapinto in the team, but there is one big obstacle. The team has to pay around £15 million in order to secure the services of Colapinto. Given the fact that they have plenty of juniors to promote, this wouldn't really be in their favour, as they'll likely move towards Isaac Hadjar if a seat in Racing Bulls was to be opened up from 2025 onwards. But make no mistake, Red Bull will face a huge financial deficit if Perez is no longer part of the team, and that's been said by the very own Carlos Slim. Carlos Slim, the man who stands behind Perez's career, stated that it's loud and clear for the Austrian team that he and his companies are supporting the Mexican driver and not Red Bull. This means that if there is a scenario in which Perez won't race for Red Bull, they will continue to support him through in his career, but will definitely refrain from any connection whatsoever with the Austrian team. Elaborating further on this extent, Slim said, "We are in talks with the team, it is not final yet. The one we always want to continue with is Checo. As far as we can always do that with him, no doubt that we will. The issue of the contract with the driver is separate from the issue of sponsorship by us. That's always been the case since he signed with the team." Well, with all this in mind, do you think that Perez should be losing his seat to Lawson? And more importantly, who do you think would replace the Kiwi driver in Racing Bulls? Let us know in the comments down below.